from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back to welcome to the Friday edition. Welcome back for the week. And as we round it out, we're going to cover lots this evening. Our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let me see, where do I start? There's a lot here, but we shall begin. We've got the Department of Justice charging an Iranian man in an alleged plot to assassinate Trump. I think there's now 2 arrests with respect to that. Let's see. We've got the judge, a federal judge, canceling Trump's 2020 election court case deadlines, which likely means nothing's going to happen there. Pelosi says Biden should have dropped out sooner. Democrats could have an open primary. Now, if they wanted him to drop out, they should have said that, right? Instead of saying it on the 8th of November, she could have said it ahead of time. But why didn't she? Well, very simple. She didn't say it because she's a fake, phony fraud. She was Joe's the right guy for the job. She's the vice president. She doesn't really have... Remember when she said that? I mean, it's kind of how the job is. She's a detestable human. Absolutely detestable. Anyway. We have a report on this, on the Iranian story. And can we cue that up, Count Delacula? All right, here we go. We've got this coming your way. CBS News correspondent Scott McFarland reporting that 2 men are now in federal custody and a third who's believed to be in Iran as the DOJ is filing these charges in a murder-for-hire plot against Donaldus Magnus El Trompito. Listen to this.
Prosecutors say the Iranian National Guard, the Revolutionary Guard of Iran, tasked a man named Farhad Shikari to target and kill U.S.-based figures deemed to be enemies of Iran. Shikari is at large right now and believed to be in Iran. In the meantime, federal agents say they've arrested 2 New York City men believed to have been recruited to help Shikari. Prosecutors released images of some of the guns the New York-based men allegedly had in their arsenal. The 3 are accused of surveilling and targeting a U.S.-based dissident of Iran and other critics of the regime living in other countries. But in charging documents, prosecutors alleged last month Iranian officials urged Shikari to focus on killing Trump. The feds say Shikari claims to not have actually formulated the plan.
So that's the latest on that. But Masih Alinejad, she's an Iranian-American journalist and an activist. She took to Twitter saying that she was also targeted by these same men who've now been charged in the assassination attempt of President Trump. Listen to this.
I received a phone call from the FBI telling me that they arrested 2 other killers who were hired by the Islamic Republic, by the same person, Farhad Shikari, who was assigned to kill and assassinate President Trump. They arrested these 2 guys because they went in front of my house to kill me. I was invited to go to Fairfield University. The FBI came to my house the same day and warned me not to go. They didn't explain why, but they told me that there is imminent threat. So the university was aware of the threat as well. They were informed by the FBI, I think, and they canceled the event, the university. When you go to Fairfield University's website, you will see that I was supposed to be there, but I couldn't make it. Now I found out why, and it's shocking because the killers were planning to go at Fairfield University, waiting for me.
Now, Miss Alinejad continues. Listen to this.
The Islamic Republic nature to get rid of their opponents, to kill anyone who dared to challenge them, to criticize the Islamic ideology. So, I don't know, I've been given a second life? No, third life. The kidnapping plot was foiled by the FBI. The Azerbaijani guy got arrested in front of my house by loaded gun, AK-47, and now 2 other killers got arrested by the FBI yesterday. Third attempt. So far, I am very pleased and thankful to the law enforcement of the United States of America that they have charged 15 people hired by the Islamic Republic to kill me, and 6 of them are behind bars in America. That's why I love my life, and I love America, and I love Iranian women who are facing the same killers, the same murderers, but never give up. So whatever I do hurts them really bad that they want to kill me. That makes me more determined to give voice to Iranian women, Iranian men, fighting shoulder to shoulder to bring the wall of dictatorship down. We will win this battle.
And again, according to the complaint filed in federal court in Manhattan, these an unnamed official in Iran, part of their paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, ordered contact with Farhad Shakeri in September to hatch this plan to kill Trump. So that's the connection with the IRGC, right? The Iranians are directly involved, according to the complaint that the FBI filed. The complaint says that if Shakeri wasn't able to create such a plan, the operation would be paused until after the presidential election. According to the complaint, the unnamed official from Iran thought that Trump would lose and it would be easier to carry out a plot to kill him after the fact. Look at that. Shakeri told the FBI the official asked for a proposal in 7 days, which was a time frame he was not able to meet. Now, there's a quote that I want to share with you. There are few actors in the world that pose as grave a threat to the national security of the United States as Iran, said Attorney General Merrick Garland. The Justice Department has charged an asset of the Iranian regime who was tasked by the regime to direct a network of criminal associates to further Iran's assassination plots against its targets, including President-elect Donald Trump. Now, let me see. This goes on. It's a long quote, but basically says they're targeting Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. And here's the thing. Do I trust Merrick Garland? If Garland tells me we got a bunch of guys trying to kill Trump, do they really got guys that are trying to? I believe they do. Was it really the Iranian regime that was paying for all this? That part I don't know. I think when Merrick Garland is in a rush to lock somebody up, it's usually somebody he doesn't like. Forgive me. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the appointment of Susie Wiles, White House Chief of Staff, and everything else that is to come with this upcoming administration. More to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. Rich Valdez live with you till 1 a.m. Eastern Time. The phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337, and everybody's favorite lefty on The View, Whoopi Goldberg, said yesterday that the economy's really not that bad. It's the folks who own the grocery stores and whatnot. They're the pigs. Listen to this.
Let's talk about the real stuff. Your pocketbook's bad, not because the Bidens did anything, not because the economy is bad. Your grocery bills are what they are is because the folks that own the groceries are pigs.
Yeah, but no one articulated that.
Well, yeah. That's what I'm saying, is that let's talk about the reasons why gas is high, not because the Bidens didn't try to help, but because the folks who control that decided, I want more money.
That's funny. Whoopi, why didn't they decide that when Donald Trump was in office? Unbelievable, the ineptitude here. But I want to get some reaction to this and so much more that's going on in the news cycle with our good friend, Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from Texas. Congresswoman, welcome back.
How are you? It's so good. It's so good to be back on your show. I really appreciate it. We've had a hell of a week, haven't we?
Busy week.
I was. I had. Yeah, it's been a busy week. Look, I had a watch party, and we had about 1,300 people on Tuesday night. And the bet of the day was whether or not we were going to find out whether or not Donald Trump was the president that night. That was the big thing, right? And by 2 a.m. they called it. It was amazing. But just take a moment to think about that. The absolute mandate that set. That having President Trump elected president that night by such an overwhelming majority, I mean, what he has delivered for our nation, what they're begging for, common sense, taking away the absolute insanity that the socialist left have inflicted on our great nation. And you played that part from Whoopi. I mean, let's not take into account the 20% inflation as a direct result of the financial policies that were inflicted upon us by the Biden-Harris administration. They're acting as if have they not talked to these small business owners that own these grocery stores and seen how slim the majorities are, how much more they're having to pay, for simple items that they're then having to sell? And to act as if, when you demonize an energy industry and increase the amount that people are paying for gasoline by, 25 to 50% in some cases, by adding trillions of dollars into the economy of taxpayer-funded money that's not sustainable, how could you not think that was going to lead to inflation? And then what do they want to do? They want to blame the small business owner. And I think what you saw was an absolute rejection by the American people of that ideal and people who are looking to move on, get our economy back to where it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's really well put. Folks, we're on with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from Texas. And, Congresswoman, the rhetoric was so, back and forth and very hot and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, they try to say, we got to dial it down and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, I think the American people decided this, right? They decided in very large numbers, we want to have our elections counted ASAP. We want to have it done the same day. We want to move forward with life. And in my opinion, Democrats, Hispanics, African Americans, they're the ones that handed the victory to Donald Trump. And I think that's fantastic because it really speaks volumes for us as a nation. My hope is that we'll continue this trend. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Look, it turns out that having $1 billion for your campaign and screaming, we want more abortions, you Nazis, probably isn't a great strategy, right, for winning over Americans who overwhelmingly said our country was headed in the wrong direction. And you are absolutely on point. Trump expanded, 3 points with black voters, 27 points with Hispanics. He expanded every age group except for seniors, and 10 points with independents. And then you look at, he had late-breaking voters, that broke for Trump. And there's a lot of reasons why this happened, but I'm Texas, right? So I represent, areas in North Texas and Dallas and Tarrant County. And I'll tell you, in Texas, we had 13 of our border counties, 11 of them voted for Trump. I mean, these are counties that are 90% or more Hispanic. And Trump won Hidalgo County, which hadn't, by the way, been a Republican. Well, he hasn't been a Republican. They have not voted for a Republican presidential candidate since 1890.
Wow.
And then you start looking at states and how much more just in 2020 to 2024 that voted for Trump. And we're talking double digits, 10 to 14%. Looking at states like California, New York, New Jersey, that's how much they increased their support for a Republican presidential candidate in Trump. So do I hope this is going to continue? I mean, absolutely, but not since Reagan have Republicans enjoyed this monumental presidential victory. He won the popular vote So, these folks who are like, oh, he's not really our president. He won the popular vote as well as the Electoral College vote. Let's see them say this now.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're not hearing that. Honestly, I'm glad that there's some like contrition coming from those on the left. But I'm looking at some of the stats. Best Republicans showing amongst 18 to 29-year-olds in the last 20 years.
Yep.
Let's see. You have to go with African Americans. Record-breaking there. Hispanic Americans. Exit polls only go back to 1972, so best since 1972. They didn't have them before that. It really was the best performance a Republican candidate's ever had. And I'm getting this information from CNN. So when CNN is forced to report the truth, it makes you think, wow, I think we're making strides in the right direction. Because I have to admit to you, Congresswoman, there are many a day, especially in this last year, where I felt like we're outnumbered. Like there's so many of them and so few of us, and we just can't get over the top. And seeing the way the map looks now and looking at this election and realizing I wasn't crazy. I might have been going crazy. They were gaslighting me into craziness. But really, Americans have not lost their way. I should not lose faith in humanity. That was encouraging for me.
I've heard so much about that. And I'll tell you, the reason why you felt like that is because you saw this mass media telling you that. You saw, people like Whoopi Goldberg. All these folks made it seem as if the rest of the country was this hardcore, nasty, hating, divisive, rhetoric-filled country. And we're sitting here going, is it just us who can see through this craziness? But I think what it proved was really the mass media means nothing anymore. It shows like yours that are breaking through, that people are listening to, that people are trusting. And there's a lot of people that we have got to thank. I'll give shout-outs for this incredible one. I mean, obviously the Trump team, right? Especially their legal team. I mean, they got into those states who had issues back in 2020, and they fought tooth and nail to stop the kind of irregularities. Let's just call them irregularities,
right?
From occurring again. Elon Musk and his purchase of Twitter was a huge benefit in terms of giving an outlet for the truth and opposing thoughts and preserving the First Amendment. I mean, literally, the legacy media is officially dead. They are in complete meltdown mode about how little the American people think of them and the Democratic propaganda that they spew every day. And you're talking about the young folks, the next generation, the 18 to 20, 25-year-olds. Let's give some credit to Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, right? I mean, he went into all these college campuses and these swing states, and he engaged, he registered. I mean, and I would say he helped turn out this young vote. And then Scott Pressler, right? I mean, he actually moved to Pennsylvania, to talk with low propensity voters. He got others registered, and then he turned them out in an incredibly important swing state. And then, look, I'm in the House. I will give credit to Speaker Johnson. I mean, he, in my mind, did a tremendous job of helping to raise funds for, we're looking to get the trifecta. We want to make sure that we got the majority in the Senate. We got a president who will pass bills, but we also need to maintain the majority in the House. And I think Speaker Johnson helped us to get there.
Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, stick with us. We're coming right back. I want to get a couple of more inputs and insights from you. Folks, we're coming right back with Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from Texas 24th Congressional District. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A majority of Gen X voted to turn America into an autocracy and to condemn our kids and grandkids to a far-right Supreme Court, probably for the rest of their lives. And it was not just Gen X, because while 91% of black women voted for Kamala Harris, 53% of white women overall voted for Trump, despite the open disrespect and demonization hurled by J.D. Vance and the Supreme Court stripping women's bodily autonomy, courtesy of Donald Trump.
So J.D. Vance told women to have more kids and less cats, and Joy Reid has her shorts in a bunch over here. I don't know. I'm not going to touch this one. I'm going to leave it to the pros. BVD is with us. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Break it down. What do you think of Joy Reid's statement?
I think it's ridiculous. I think they're grasping at straws again. I'm sorry, but people see what they are feeling. I mean, when you go into the grocery store and you're seeing prices at 20, 30, 40% higher when you're getting gas in your car. Whoopi told me that it's the greedy grocer. Exactly. Yeah, come on. And we all see it, and we all know why. I think Democrats wanted to talk about killing babies. That was their number one focus. It had nothing to do with women's health care. It had everything to do with abortions. And that was not where most Americans' thoughts were. They were looking at what was happening at the border, that you had 15 to 20 million people who have entered our country illegally. As a result, you are seeing headline after headline of women who are being raped and murdered in the streets, apartment complexes that are being taken over, Venezuelan gangs, that are killing people. This is what people are seeing. And Democrats are like, no, that's not important. Let's just go over here and talk about, this issue that hardly affects anyone. People were seeing what was happening at the border, and they were taking it seriously. They were seeing what was happening in the economy and their cost of living and taking it seriously. And you see these talking heads, these pundits, that didn't get it. They wanted to talk about how bad the orange man was and about abortion, and that was not where most Americans lived. I mean, look, we have seen that what Republicans campaigned on, right, were the matters that I listen to when I'm going across my district, and that was making sure that people got to keep more of what they earned by lowering taxes and inflation, about expanding American energy development to lower costs and drive, job growth, about securing our borders and deporting criminal aliens and protecting our families, about empowering the kind of growth that we're seeing in Texas. As a result, we're seeing businesses relocate here. We're seeing families relocate here as a result of our pro-economic policies. That is what was important to people. And Democrats completely missed the boat. And these pundits that were trying to, scream racism and bigotry and hatefulness and divisiveness, that was not taken seriously by people who are suffering right now as a result of the economy and the national security that we're facing as a direct result of Biden-Harris. It's like, stop trying to scare us and just tell us about what's actually going on. And again, they're not letting up. But some people like Van Jones, right? I mean, he's saying we were stupid. We're talking about how bad Trump is and what idiots people were to support Trump. We look like the idiots now. And yeah, you absolutely do.
Something else that Joy Reid said, Congresswoman, is that 53% of white women overall voted for Trump. It's a majority. That's a massive number. When the last election, all they said was suburban white women are, going to tank Trump. And now this was, part of his victory. This is, I think, a very big deal with that type of majority. Let's talk about that. Do you think it was all abortion? Do you think it was all the fact that when they go to do their grocery shopping, or was there more to it?
I think there's more to it. I think they saw how divisive the rhetoric was by the left. And I think they saw Republicans who had actually been able to pass bills in the House, like our Secure the Borders Act, like our energy empowerment, our American Energy Development Act. These were things that would actually make a difference in their lives. And instead of embracing that and having a solution, you had Harris, who went out there and just Trump bad. And it's really hard to support a candidate who can't express how they're going to help with policies, how they're going to help your life. Republicans did that, not to mention the fact that Trump had 4 years under his belt to show what he was able to accomplish, what he did to the economy, what he did to help women, what he did to help working families, what he did to improve the economy, what he did to secure our borders. And, by the way, it's very difficult to ignore what's going on in the rest of the world. When you see things like October 7th happened, it was Hamas coming in and terrorizing and killing thousands and thousands of Israelis. When you see Russia come in and what they did to Ukraine, when you see the threat that Iran is posing to the rest of the Middle East, when you see the threat that China is posing to Taiwan, and recognize the fact that this did not happen under a Trump administration. Because while you may be offended by his tweets, the fact is that there is strength in leadership from the U.S., and it was completely lacking over the last 3.5 years. So for people to try to, egg on, and I remember this, I was one of the first people that endorsed Trump when he ran in 2016. I was the only mayor of a top 100 city that endorsed Trump. And I remember taking the heat from my female colleagues. What are you doing? I said, I'm not voting with my ovaries. I'm voting with my brain, and I'm seeing what's happening with the economy. I want a strong woman, fine, but I want a strong leader. And it was not in Hillary, and it was not in Harris. And as a woman, I was completely offended by that thought, that just because we have a pair of ovaries, that's how we're supposed to vote. I'm looking at the economy. I'm looking at what's happening to my kids and my kids' future and the debt that they're imposing on them. And I think women, they make us out to be these overly emotional wrecks that are somehow going to vote in a pack, because people share, our DNA. It's not going to happen. We're thinking with our minds. We're thinking about the future. We're thinking about what's happening in our pocketbooks. And that's why you saw a majority of women that voted for Trump.
Congresswoman BVD, we heard about the appointment of Susie Wiles for Chief of Staff, first woman ever to hold that office, and that's fantastic for El Trompito Donaldus Magnus. But there's a lot of other people on his little fantasy football dream team that he's assembling. And names like the transition people like Howard Lutnick and RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, etc. I don't know how many of those make it to the administration, but what have you heard? What can you tell us?
Well, I'll tell you, what he's doing is he is picking people that have shown that they can actually achieve success in life. He's not picking people based on their DEI profile. He's not picking whether or not they are gay, whether or not they are black, whether or not they are women, what kind of minority checkbox. He's looking at people by what their merits are. And that, as Americans, is something that we should all support. We don't want to be qualified by how we were born. And you're looking at Elon Musk and what that man has been able to achieve. You're looking at RFK and the fact that he reaches out and appeals to a completely different sector than Trump did. But Trump is not picking him because of that. He's picking him basically based on a profile of success and the voice that he brings. You think about the disparate, the views that he is bringing to the table with a Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat, Hawaii, a woman, but they have disparate views, but they are all interested in at the end of the day, the focus of making America great again. That's a team that he's bringing together that people are getting behind. This is not about a reelection because he doesn't need to worry about that. But he wants to achieve things, and I'll tell you, I'm very excited. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. I'm looking at what Congress is focusing on, and that is getting a great tax bill within the first 100 days. Learning from Newt Gingrich's model, as much as you can get through in the first few months, especially if we're able to get a trifecta, which it looks like we're going to be able to do, those are the things that we're focused on. And, whether or not it's decimating, and God love Elon Musk if he's able to achieve this, but decimating regulations and the abusive agencies who are holding back our American energy industry, that has well-paying jobs. Let's look at that. It's re-securing our borders, south and north, by empowering Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol to actually enforce our laws and be able to deport criminal illegal aliens, which is something I know firsthand about, and going after the Mexican cartels. God bless Tom Homan. I am all for him being back in that job. Or start identifying the vast portions of the federal bureaucracy for us to get rid of. Looks at the government of efficiency with Elon Musk. We are looking at the expansion of the 2017 tax cuts that everybody said we were crazy to be able to do, but actually saw a massive growth of the economy as a direct result. If we are not able to pass a tax bill, that is a 90% tax increase to all Americans. That's what we're seeing. It's going to be a hit hardest by the middle class and by our working families. That's something that on Ways and Means we're focused on. But, when you start thinking about who he's going to put in his cabinet, who he's putting in these political positions, he's putting the most qualified people, and God love him for that.
Amen to that. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with the amazing work that you're doing.
Well, look, Beth for Texas, anybody who wants to reach out to me can do that, bethfortexas.com. Love to be able to hear from you. You follow me. We obviously Twitter, Facebook, Instagram account. But we are focused on bringing forward some massive changes that I think Americans are encouraged, empowered, and have really made a mandate with this election, getting the House, the Senate, and a president in the White House who will sign these conservative bills that will bring back rationality, common sense politics, and strong leadership in the White House is something that, God bless. This is a new day, man. I woke up on Wednesday feeling refreshed and ready to go. And God bless you, because literally I think you represent, the new voice of America. What you say is what people are listening to. And, this legacy media is dead, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Congressman. You're very kind, and thank you. I want to appreciate you staying up late and being generous with your time. And Godspeed. Anything we can do, we're here for you. Good to talk to you. I hope to talk to you again soon.
God bless you.
You bet. God bless. Folks, Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, she's terrific. And your calls and more coming up right now, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
It was also men. Trump won every age group of men, including 60% of Gen X men and 6 in 10 white men. Also Latino men, who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas from here on in.
Now, she thinks that this is going to be effective, but let me tell you something. Number one, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I'm wrong here, you could fact check me if you like, I could have sworn I saw David Duke endorsing Kamala Harris, number one. So if you're voting with David Duke, I think that would have been a vote for Harris. Number two, let's really think about this for a moment. In my family, I think I would like to say we uphold the law. I think that's true for most people in their families. I think it's also true for most people in their families that they might have a person in their family that doesn't always uphold the law, right? You might have that one crooked uncle, that one cousin that never met a credit card scam that he didn't get involved in, right? I think that there's a criminal somewhere in somebody's family, somebody's nephew, somebody's stepson from their second marriage. That's just a disaster, or somebody's stepdaughter from somewhere else that has an addiction issue and likes to steal so she can get high. I think families have all sorts of things. So we could say you're mixed status family when it comes to being law-abiding citizens. Now, when you ask this family, should we now all vote to defund the police and decriminalize crime because there's a few people in our family that struggle with following the law? Of course not. I don't know why or how she would suspect that somehow if somebody has a family member that overstayed a visa, whatever, is in the country and their status is not legal, that somehow the right thing to do is to vote to make it legal for people from all over this planet to come into this country unchecked. Now, I know Joy Reid thinks she's selling something good, right? She's selling something really, really good. But I can't agree with that. I don't think anybody would when you really think about what she's talking about. The proof is there. right? She said he's won every demographic group. And he won this one, and he won this one, and he won this one. So if he won all of these groups, despite your grievances with those particular outcomes, then it's clear to me that these people wanted that outcome. I've never met a Hispanic that is in this country legally that was like, you know what? We need to open up that border. Never. Never. I literally never. The only people that I've ever heard is, well, you know, we're just trying to make a better life for ourselves, are the people that have come across the border or overstayed a visa, that are trying to be legal in this country, looking for that quote unquote pathway to citizenship. I don't begrudge them. And quite frankly, if I was a betting man, and you know that I'm really not, but if I was, I am pretty good at making certain predictions when it comes to this stuff. And I'll tell you this, I think the amount of mistakes that we're going to see are going to be minimal. You know, that mom that's here that's trying to make money so she can bring her family members over, or she's trying to support her kids or whatever it is that is in the process of trying to get a green card or something like that. I really just don't think that mom is the one that gets deported. You know why? Why, Rich? Well, how would they know the difference? Really simple. We have an entire island called Manhattan that's right here. And this island is filled with shelters that are housing illegal aliens. A whole lot of them. They're not just here in New York City. They're all over the place. They're in Texas. They're in Arizona. They're everywhere. So we already know where a large amount of people are. Those would be the first ones you deport, where you know they are. The next ones you deport, the ones that you're holding on to in jail. The next thing you do is you do some legal maneuvers and you say, all right, we have to work with these states, or we have to mandate that these states get rid of any prisoners they're holding, or, you know, require that these sanctuary states aren't allowed to be sanctuary states anymore. And again, I think this idea of nullification on a federal issue might be one that might be the way they do it, right? Because, the federal government's not going to tell New York or New Jersey or any other state, hey, look, you have to do things this way. They can only do that on things that matter to them, where they have all the purview, all the jurisdiction. And that would be in the area of immigration. That's a federal issue. So therefore, they can call the shots. Anyway, more on that when I return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
The media is a powerful thing. I'm going to say the media is a powerful drug, and it could get you to hallucinate. Even me, like I said, for a few years now, I have really felt like we're outnumbered. Like no matter where you go. Part of it is because of where I live, I would presume. You know, working in New York City, living in New Jersey. It becomes a thing where you're just surrounded by people. Now, it's true, in recent years, I've been surrounded by more and more people that are like, giving me a thumbs up when they see me and that type of thing. And people that are big, I hate to use the word waking up because I feel like it's insulting to the person, as if, hey, you're so stupid, you've been asleep at the wheel in life. I would never want to talk to somebody that way, unless they were a lefty that disagreed with me on the radio. But my point is, I think ultimately, I got suckered. I got had. And I'm glad that there are more people that love this country than there are that hate this country. God bless America. Folks, we're coming back with hour number 2. We've got a big show for you today. So keep it locked here. Hour 2, hour 3, and so much more coming up. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of our Friday night program. Our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337. We're live, we're national, and looking forward to speaking with you, 833-4-VALDEZ. And by the way, I'm at Rich Valdez, with an S, by the way, on all of the social media. If you want to chime in and drop a comment that way, feel free. And I mentioned something in the first hour that I want to follow up on, and that was what's going on with Jack Smith, right? Jack Smith and his prosecution against President Trump, the January 6th case, and other stuff that he's trying to have cooking. And we got a report on that from News Nation. Check this out.
The special counsel submitted this to the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. I'll read it for you now. It says, quote, as a result of the election held on November 5th, 2024, the defendant is expected to be certified as president-elect on January 6th, 2025, and inaugurated on January 20th, 2025. The government respectfully requests that the court vacate the remaining deadlines in the pretrial schedule to afford the government time to assess the unprecedented circumstances and determine the appropriate course going forward, consistent with Department of Justice policy. That letter goes on to say that they recognize that they're in uncharted waters here and that there are going to be deliberations taking place in the special counsel's office, and the courts will formally be notified by December 2nd as to exactly how they intend to proceed. But in the wake of the election, obviously things are changing over with the special counsel's office and how to proceed with this January 6th case.
So there you have that. And it's pretty much a wrap. It's a wrap for the whole January 6th debacle. All right? Basically, here's what's going to happen. Excuse me. Hitting that cough button. According to NBC News, the Justice Department officials are considering how to wind down all the cases, at least the 2 cases that they've got right now with Jack Smith. And they obviously have this longstanding policy from the Office of Legal Counsel that they weren't even aware of until the great one, Mark Levin, reminded them of that. And then they said, oh, shoot, we can't prosecute Trump. This is when he was president. So now that they know that, you got a bunch of different legal scholars that are saying, nope, not going to happen. He's never going to see the inside of a jail cell. So what happens? So it seems like they're not going to charge him with unlawfully attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss, which he didn't, because they say that he was trying to stoke a riot. Then there's Smith charging Trump with hoarding boxes of national security information at his Mar-a-Lago estate. That also was kind of shot down by Judge Eileen Cannon, federal judge. So it seems like they've got a whole lot of nothing going on with this. And there's a good piece in the New York Post by Priscilla DeGregory. I recommend it if you want to take a look and see where that stuff goes. But as we move on, there was also a really good clip. Man, I don't want to go over time, but really good clip that I wanted to share with you on the breakdown of President Trump's election win. But I'm going to save that one for a little bit, maybe for about 11:30, 11:40. Let me see. There was one more thing I wanted to share with you. Oh, right here. This is the RFK. There's a lot of RFK here because, he's got this whole thing. He wants to make America healthy again. And this obviously is a big thing. And RFK Jr. endorsed Trump back in August, and he came on the show just before that talking about his support for the MAGA movement, even before he endorsed him. And this was a big thing, and a lot of folks in the media and the corporate America and all over the place were like, what is this going to do? How's it going to be? Well, he's been at this for a long time, right? He's been at this, taking on big pharma and others that are, you know, I don't want to say enemies of his, but adversaries of his that he's sued over and over and over. And there's a couple of clips from an interview. Let me see here. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place here. Bear with me. It's Friday. And these are number 26, number 27. All right. So I want to start with this one. He's interviewing with NBC News, and he explains to them that he wants to do a lot of things, right? There's talk about removing agencies from the United States government. I think that's a great idea. There's talk about protecting our food supply, making it healthier, reducing fluoride in drinking water. They ask him about vaccines. It's a pretty wide-ranging interview. And I'm going to play some of these clips for you. But I also want to have a larger conversation because ultimately I think it's important that we talk about this stuff. There's a lot going on here, right? There's a lot happening with this, I don't know what it's called, right? I guess eating healthy movement or protecting our food supply movement. But something that was brought to my attention years ago by my brother. One day he tells me, hey, Richie, make sure you buy yourself some toothpaste that doesn't have fluoride. And I said, I'm supposed to have fluoride. It's good for you. He said, no, it's not. And I said, why? He said, it's not good for you. I said, okay. I was, I was skeptical. I didn't really believe it. But then as time went on, more and more people told me, oh, yeah, no, it's really bad. And different people, different walks of life, some knew more than others and started to make a compelling case. And I said, oh, wow, interesting. Then somebody started telling me about red dye 40 and the effect that it has on kids and ADHD and all that stuff. I said, oh, I've got that. And they said, are you sure? Maybe it's just a lot of red dye 40. And I was like, well, I started looking. How much of this red dye 40 do I have? And I found myself having a whole lot of it, way more than I thought. And that was very interesting to me. Excuse me. So I was like, oh, let me check it out over here. And guess what? I was consuming a good amount of it. And I started to notice that when I did feel a little bit more excitable or distracted or, accelerated, if you will, it was after consuming a good amount of that. And now I do it on purpose. Like before I go to the gym, I'll find myself like sour gummies, that are chock full of red dye 40. And they actually do work out for me. It's like a pre-workout type of thing. So go figure. But there's a lot to discuss there. So I'm going to get to these clips. I want to play one for you right now because I think it's an interesting conversation with RFK Jr. I don't want to rush through it, and I really want to talk it through with Jay Richards, who's scheduled to join us in a little bit as well on making America healthy again. But there's this clip up. I just lost it. Let me see here. About the removal of agencies, about blocking vaccines, and they get into a little bit of a sparring match on the vaccines, RFK Jr. and NBC News. Listen to cut 26.
You have been a crusader on questioning vaccines. Are there specific vaccines that you would seek to take off the market?
Oh, I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine.
You will not take any vaccine that is currently on the market.
I'm not. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information. So I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them.
People should make up their own minds. And there's a couple of more good questions from that interview that I'm going to share with you. Very, very interesting stuff. And again, something that I wasn't really privy to. It's not really a political topic. This is a very apolitical topic, in my opinion, but an important one nonetheless. So keep it locked right here. I'm going to come back and talk with Jay Richards. He's a former professor at Catholic University, and he's over at Heritage now. And this Make America Healthy Again topic is very, very, very important. A lot of people gravitating to it, and it's part of what helped Trump cross that finish line with people that may not have otherwise voted for him. So I want to get into that as well. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you until, 1 o'clock Eastern. We're not there yet. We got a way to go and a lot to discuss. And I want to do that with Professor Jay Richards. He was at Catholic University. Now he's at the Heritage Foundation. And I want to talk about RFK Jr., his endorsement of Trump, how that materialized. We all know that Trump, crossed the finish line in a really big way, as he would say, bigly or huge. And here we are. But this MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, movement is a big thing. A lot of people are on board. And like I was saying earlier, this is not your everyday movement. This consists of people who disagree on many other issues, right? But they all coalesce around this issue of safer and cleaner food supply, the fact that so many things are outlawed in many other countries and they don't feed them to their children, let alone adults in other countries. But here, we've legalized just about everything. We have a massive addiction to sugar. I mean, just you name it, there's so many things. And RFK Jr. has been one of the few, really, with the courage to call this out, to call out, the sugar industry, to call out the mainly the big pharma industry, and so much more, and how they're all kind of interrelated. So I want to have that conversation with our guest, Jay Richards. Welcome.
Rich, great to be with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's talk about this. I know that I guess we should pick up with Bobby Kennedy endorsing Trump back in August, and I guess, shaking things up as a result.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely amazing because I don't think anyone could have anticipated this. I mean, I've been working on the gender ideology fight for several years and had already seen this kind of untraditional coalition of people, social conservative Catholics and evangelicals and lesbians and radical feminists working together to try to get crazy gender surgery stopped. This is kind of an alliance that we hadn't seen. And the MAGA alliance is something that I think, honestly, Donald Trump maybe had a sense of it. We could never have predicted, though, that a lifelong Democrat like Bobby Kennedy, that people would say probably on the left of the political spectrum, would end up endorsing and then campaigning with Trump. But if you understand what Bobby Kennedy is actually about, if you actually followed him, people mostly, they don't follow him. They think he's some fringe character. If you read his speech in August, he focused on the massive increase in the rise of chronic diseases, especially among teens. This is an absolute epidemic, and it's not just kind of a health thing that, right, okay, well, you need to work out more. He connected the dots to this cartel of, you can sort of say, big ag or big food, big pharma, and big government. We were used to, during the Cold War, thinking of the private sector and the public sector. What we actually have to deal with in the 21st century is a cartel of the public and private sector, and that's what Bobby Kennedy put his finger on. And I just was elated that he teamed up with Donald Trump. I mean, something that a lot of us just always thought, look, this is never going to get talked about. It's never going to get fixed. All of a sudden, we've got the potential for a fundamentally new coalition of people.
And quite an interesting coalition, because other than that one issue that kind of galvanizes them together of health, kind of unusual suspects, if you will.
Yeah, you'd think sort of strange bedfellows initially, but I mean, I can tell you, because this has been an interest of mine for years. And in fact, I was at a conference in Boston just about 3 weeks ago, really about this, about, okay, what's the problem with our food? Why do we have massive intolerances against, allergies that are developing? Why have we gone from 10,000 to 1 to 36 to 1 kids being diagnosed with autism? And I can tell you, the thing opened with the Pledge of Allegiance and a Catholic priest praying, You had a kind of shaman in the middle. You had someone talking about psychedelics. You had someone talking about the vaccines, right? So really kind of motley assortment of people. But that's kind of the point. I mean, these are people that, you know, if you're watching the political news, you wouldn't know there is this subculture of people concerned basically about all the same things. And they're not only across the political spectrum, a lot of these people aren't even sort of plugged into politics. They're homeschooling Catholic moms with their Berkey filters and their raw milk. You know, they're lefties that really are kind of anarchists that want to be left alone living in Eastern Oregon. They all have this kind of these similar concerns. They just didn't actually know each other. And I honestly don't think there are really no pundits talking about this kind of sleeping giant among the American public of these disparate individuals, all of whom are sharing the same concerns and focused on a very particular political problem that neither party, frankly, was willing to talk about, because for the most part, most of the politicians in Washington, D.C., left and right are kind of silenced by the pharmaceutical companies. And so they really never want to get down into the weeds and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, that's the truth. And what I think is really interesting about all of it, and something that you mentioned, is we ask these questions every now and again, like, why are people having more allergies to everything? Why are kids becoming, diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and other things, autism in record numbers? And I feel like we come up short on those answers. Why?
Well, it's honestly because we're not really allowed to ask certain questions. I mean, I first became aware of it studying, again, the gender ideology thing. And so in the UK, from 2009 to 2019, the UK had one gender clinic for kids until they closed summer before last. The number of kids, girls, being referred to the gender clinic with gender dysphoria went up by 4,400% from 2009 to 2019, right? And so in anyone's calculation, we're dealing with some kind of massive psychosocial epidemic. And that's just one thing. That's just one example. Bobby Kennedy, in his speech endorsing Trump, talked about 20 of these things. And I honestly think the reason no one wants to talk about it is because it's kind of difficult. We don't know exactly what's causing it, but what I do know is, first of all, we have a really bizarre vaccine schedule for young children. We can't connect the dots simply. Bobby Kennedy for years has just been saying, can we please do a population-wide analysis of all-cause illness, vaccinated versus unvaccinated population, so we can at least get some kind of picture of that. The NIH absolutely refuses to do it. That's just, there's like this whole set of questions you're not allowed to ask, or you get accused of, wanting old people to die and being an anti-vaxxer. But we have to be able to ask these questions if we're going to figure out what's causing it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of this movement and part of the work you're doing, and it's these are the questions we need to ask. Folks, we're on with our guest, former professor at Catholic University, Jay Richards, director of Heritage's DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family. And we're going to get into a little bit more of this, the conversation Bobby Kennedy had with NBC News, and more about what this looks like as it materializes into a movement that became a big coalition that's now potentially going to be part of the cabinet and administration. So we're going to see what happens there and how the effect of taking on the big pharma and big everything else cartel. So we're going to chat with Jay Richards coming back. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Would you eliminate any of the agencies?
To eliminate the agencies, as long as it requires congressional approval, I wouldn't be doing that. And I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier.
There, again, is the interview with Bobby Kennedy and NBC News just this week about the removal of certain agencies. And to me, it sounds like he's saying, "Oh no, I'm not going to get rid of any agencies. Elon Musk is going to do that." What do I know? Let's bring it back to our guest, because this has been a really good conversation so far. Jay Richards is with us. He's a former professor at Catholic University and the director of Heritage Foundation's DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and the Family. He's also the author of the book "Fight the Good Fight." And I had not seen that. I wasn't on my sheet, but I grew up watching James Robison on TV, so I can't wait to talk about the book a little bit more. James and Betty. And I want to get your take, though, on this comment about the reduction of agencies and a potential role that Bobby Kennedy would have in the administration. Jay Richards.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear President Trump has promised Bobby Kennedy that he's going to play a major role in the reform of, well, let's just call it the health bureaucracy. So basically everything under HHS, and then let's include the USDA for good measure, because for some reason we listen to the U.S. Department of Agriculture when it comes to telling us what we're supposed to eat, even though its job was really actually to just promote agriculture. And so Bobby Kennedy talked in that interview about the corruption of these institutions. In other words, he's not saying, look, we shouldn't have a CDC, we shouldn't have a National Institutes of Health or an FDA. It's that these institutions have been utterly corrupted. I mean, economists call it a regulatory capture, in which the regulatory agencies and the companies that they're supposed to be regulating, they basically work together so that the regulations are sort of have carve-outs for the large corporations that can afford the regulations, and then they prevent entry by sort of smaller upstarts. So that's why we talk about big pharma. The problem isn't that it's bad for companies to compete to develop drugs that would actually help us. It's the system that we actually have now when, for instance, over 1,000 full-time employees at the National Institute of Health, Rich, are paid royalties every year by drug companies that they regulate. And you might say, gosh, that's outrageous. That's surely illegal. That's what's outrageous about it. It's not illegal. It's legal. Right. That tells you how insular and how sort of fused these regulatory agencies are with the corporations and the companies that they're supposed to be regulating. It's one of these things, honestly, I mean, for me, it actually started because of my interest in diet and fitness with the stupid food pyramid. That was a kind of initial red pill for me. Then it was COVID-19. It was the insane lockdowns that were the product of the public health bureaucracy, completely insane. And then the very strange things that happened with the vaccine mandates after the lockdowns of the COVID vaccine. And so these are sort of glimmers in which I think most of the American public was blind to this. And then, honestly, I think for half the population, what the lockdowns followed by the weird stuff with the vaccines, the COVID vaccine, I'd say maybe half the population is now at least vaguely aware, yeah, there's a problem here. And Bobby Kennedy has been shining a light on this for a long time and been denounced for being a crank for doing it.
Yeah, he's been a thorn in their side for a long time. Now, they were very aggressive with him, and I just want you to take a listen to something before we move on to your book, because I really want to talk about that as well. But there's a little exchange that he has with the reduction of fluoride in the drinking water, and I find it interesting because he's a very big figure and a respected one in this kind of movement. But nobody else is really talking about it. And if they are, they're not getting the type of traction he is. Listen to this.
You would seek to ban fluoride in the U.S. water supply?
Well, I would advise the water districts that are currently using it that there's a lot of new science out there. In fact, there's a federal judge decision by an Obama-appointed judge on October 4th of this year in which he's to send EPA back to the drawing board and said, you've never done the safety studies on this. And by the way...
And so what does that look like? Without debating, without going back and forth on the science?
By the way, it's lowering IQ in our children.
What would you upon January 2025, we're 3 months away here, what would you actually do in your position outside of the White House?
I think fluoride is on its way out.
And how do you make that happen? This is your chance. That's what you're suggesting to me. How would you make that happen?
Well, listen to what I'm saying, okay? And then I'll tell you.
Okay.
I think Florida is on the way out because of that court decision. I think the faster that it goes out, the better. I'm not going to compel anybody to take it out, but I'm going to advise the water districts about their legal liability, their legal obligation to their service zones and to their constituents. And I'm going to give them good information about the science, and I think that fluoride will disappear.
There it is. Do you see this materializing, or do you think he's going to have an uphill challenge here?
I actually, what's funny about this is one of these things that, look, I'll confess. I used to live in Seattle years ago, and everywhere I went, at a concerted gathering, there was a guy that was completely fixated on fluoride in the water, and he had gray hair and a ponytail, and it's like, oh, he always asks the question of the speaker about fluoride in the water. Can you give it a break? But the truth of the matter is I knew absolutely nothing about the subject. And then, I thought, enough people talk about this. It doesn't actually take that much to find out. A lot of countries don't do this. There are cities that don't have fluoride in their water. We do know that at certain levels, fluoride can be as a neurotoxin. And then this judgment that he mentioned in October, this really happened. And now this happens usually at the level of either cities or counties. So it would be up to the cities and counties to decide that. But what's funny about the fluoride in the water thing is it's something that, of course, the media, they are just quite certain that only a crank could sort of talk about this. How could anybody be concerned about it? But in fact, Bobby Kennedy, turns out he kind of knows what he's talking about. And a lot of European countries don't do it for the very reasons that he's talking about. It's the same thing with the vaccines. If he wants to criticize or say, look, have we really been careful about the sort of long-term safety studies of this massive vaccine schedule with about 72 vaccines before kids are 14 years old? The answer is no, we have not. Maybe individually, but the sort of combined vaccine schedule, we really, we don't have a lot of good safety data on. And if you say that, people immediately denounce you because they think that you're denouncing the smallpox vaccine, which of course you're not. And this has always been kind of his dilemma. But I honestly, Bobby Kennedy says stuff I disagree with, but I admire him because he's been willing to talk about these things, even though he knew it was an uphill battle. Every time he talks to a sort of corporate reporter on TV, on NBC, look, a major portion of their advertising dollars is paid for by pharmaceutical companies. So they basically work for the pharmaceutical companies. So you got to be a brave guy to be Bobby Kennedy, specifically now with a voice disorder, to be able to sort of defend these things. And that's what's sort of extraordinary. And the reason we're talking about him now is precisely because he represents a constituency of people that supported him, that maybe have thought of themselves on the left politically, that ended up aligning with Donald Trump, who the liberal media has been telling us was Hitler. Right? This is something absolutely no one could have imagined happening. Not one person predicted it, basically, until it happened. And it really is extraordinary. And if it goes right, I think it will be one of the most significant sort of realignments politically and culturally that we will have seen this century.
Yeah, really interesting. Earlier today, I was watching a reel on one of those videos on Instagram, and it showed a picture of Bobby Kennedy Jr. taking off his shirt and doing push-ups. And it said Trump's, potential next health secretary. And then it showed a picture of Dr. Rachel Levine and said the Biden-Harris health secretary. And I couldn't help but laugh at that one. That was fun.
Absolutely. Rachel Levine is the number 2 person at the Department of Health and Human Services. That is a picture that's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, it really was. Folks, we're on with Jay Richards from the Heritage Foundation, author of the book, Fight the Good Fight. And I want to learn a little bit more about the book that you co-wrote with James Robison. And we're going to do that straight ahead. So thanks for agreeing to stick around. We'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, the day that you welcome me to your show is a happy day for me. And I hope that America appreciates what you're doing because you're fighting a good fight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Jay Richards. He's the author of the book, Fight the Good Fight. And tell us about this and how you wrote it with James and Betty Robinson and that whole connection from Life TV? Because I didn't know. I kind of got caught off guard with that.
Oh, so James and I have known each other for years. We actually wrote a book in 2012 together called Indivisible, which was really designed basically to bring Catholics and evangelicals together to say, look, we can create a common platform of things that we share in common. And then James, when 2024 was coming up, said, yeah, maybe we should just reissue Indivisible. And I read it. I thought, we live in a different universe now, because when we wrote that book, I mean, it was Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama. And I thought, no, we got to do something else. And what I mentioned in previous segment that I've spent the last 3 years at the Heritage Foundation working on gender ideology and fighting it, and had discovered that there's this kind of new coalition of people. And so you might have sort of social conservatives and religious people, of course, fighting this idea that kids need to, sterilize themselves with drugs and surgery so that they can be happy. But there's a lot of people on the left that actually agreed with us. There are lesbians that agreed with us. There are atheist evolutionary biologists that agreed with us. In fact, some of the people that I work with, and I thought, there's a potential for a coalition now that really, I think, came to fruition with this Bobby Kennedy, Donald Trump alliance of people that see what's happened politically is that, I'm a Gen Xer. And so I can remember kind of left-right debates in which everybody believed that everybody had free speech and ought to be able to at least argue. We're in a different world now because of this kind of rabid woke leftism. And so what I think has actually happened is there's a large group of people, they may call themselves refugees. They feel like the Democratic Party left them. They're not exactly right-wingers. They're sort of classical liberals that don't know where they are supposed to go. And so I thought we need to write a book that we can make the case for all the kind of conservative policies that we hold, whether it be faith in the public square or the cause for life or marriage or whatever. How do we understand this as Christians together, but also how do we make these arguments in the public square just appealing to people's natural reason, whether it's basic moral instincts that everyone has or just really good science? And I think that's the way forward, because I think we sort of keep imagining on the right that, people are getting less and less religious, they're getting less and less conservative in many ways, but it kind of misses what's actually happening. The kind of political reality that I think, when we wrote the book, I was just thinking, okay, we've come together around gender ideology and the fight against kind of woke ideology in our institutions. I didn't even imagine at the beginning of the year when the book came out that we might genuinely get this kind of classical liberal conservative alliance that's represented really not just by Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump, but Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. I mean, did anyone have this in their bingo card in January of 2024? Probably not. But this wouldn't have happened if there hadn't already been a kind of groundswell of people sort of noticing, gosh, we have some major things in common, and we definitely have a common enemy. And I think that's what finally pushed Donald Trump over the finish line and got him the popular vote.
Yeah, I think you're 100% spot on with that. Jay Richards, let everybody know what the big takeaway, when they buy a copy of the book or they get, one for themselves and one to give away. What's the big takeaway that they can get, or I guess maybe your favorite part of the book?
My favorite part of the book is that we decided we're going to make it short, so it's 60,000 words. Every chapter is just about 3,000 words. But if you want to know, okay, what is the kind of clearest, pithiest way to make a case for, tight borders or for faith in the public square or for the pro-life cause? We have distilled those arguments, both so if it's a person of faith, you can sort of, how do you understand as a person of faith? And what are the arguments you make to your next door neighbor on these things that doesn't share that faith? We want to make it a sort of really basic primer for people that, can't work at a think tank and spend all their time thinking about these things like I can.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I appreciate the conversation. Let everybody know where they can go get the book.
Absolutely. Amazon or, just Google Fight the Good Fight, Jay Richards and Jay Robinson, and it'll come up. And you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dr. Jay Richards.
Well, I'll be giving you a follow right after this. Folks, give them a follow, get a copy of the book, give one away for Christmas. Holidays are coming. Make sure you get a couple of copies. Dr. Jay Richards, I want to thank you for being here tonight. Excellent conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Rich. Good to be with you.
You bet. God bless. And folks, we come back in a moment, a little bit more yeah, I guess I'm going to set the stage a little more, and then we're opening up those phone lines wide open. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And again, if you've never called, today's a great day to call. If you disagree, today's a great day to call. And if you're a regular, looking forward to speaking with you. You know how that goes. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You have a hell of a vice president right there who has a legal pedigree to sit on the Supreme Court and let Republicans go crazy and ape. I'm even mentioning that option.
You floating? Are you floating? This is 7:39 a.m. on the East Coast. Did Bakari Sellers just float Vice President Kamala Harris as a potential Supreme Court nominee?
Not only am I floating it, but I want to stir up everything. I want people's heads to explode this morning so we go into the weekend just knowing that the chaos has not ended just yet.
That is Bakari Sellers, a commentator from CNN earlier today, saying that Biden should put Kamala Harris on the Supreme Court before he leaves. Now, I don't see how that works unless they get rid of somebody. Earlier this week, I heard somebody saying that the next president might have to fill Sonia Sotomayor's seat. And I'm thinking, I don't know a lot, right? I know that in my lifetime, I think I've seen one, maybe two Supreme Court justices resign, like to retire. And I think it's more like one, I think, right? But that's it. They die, right? That's how it works. You die. Scalia died. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. These are lifetime appointments, and they typically take it pretty seriously. So I don't think that someone in good health, or even if there's a health issue, is just going to say, hey, take care. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, undergoing cancer treatment and whatnot until the very end. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a skeptic. Who knows? But I'd love your thoughts on that. Because I don't, just imagine, do you think Kamala Harris should be on the Supreme Court? Imagine what that would be like. Imagine the conversations between Clarence Thomas and Kamala Harris. Unbelievable. I would love to hear her legal reasoning on so many things. Let me tell you, could they get her confirmed before Trump takes office? Probably not. McConnell would never let that fly. So I see it as an impossibility, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. Let me know if you want to challenge that idea. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. 833-482-5337 is the number. Open phones across America, starting momentarily, by the way. But, yeah, just imagine that. Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Kamala Harris. I don't know if it has a ring to it or not. Sounds kind of scary to me. Anyway, folks, that and more. They've been bashing the Latino voters, Hispanic voters. They say that we're racist, misogynist, and we're just dead wrong. Democrats lost at the polls because Americans are racist, yada, yada, yada. We're going to break down all the numbers, and we're going to hear from some of these crazy lefties in the media. Don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. Open phones across America.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back. Hour number 3 of our Friday night program. We're live, we're national, and we're taking your calls. 833-4825-337-833-4-Valdez. And earlier I mentioned that there was a clip from CNN that I was talking to Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne about. And it's Harry Enton, the CNN data analyst, and he was explaining just how big Donald Trump's victory, his big win, how big it actually was. 312 electoral college votes, and it's remarkable because it's such a big one, it's such a big win, and he breaks it down in a way that I think it just becomes more valuable because he's the CNN guy. Listen to this.
The breadth of the improvement that Donald Trump had. Holy Toledo. All right, Trump gained ground in 49 states and the District of Columbia compared to 2020. I went back through the record books. When was the last time a party gained in so many different places? You have to go all the way back to 1992 when Bill Clinton improved upon Michael Dukakis's performance in 49 states, plus the District of Columbia. The bottom line is no matter where you looked on the map, Kate Baldwin, no matter where you looked, Donald Trump was improving on where he did 4 years ago, except for Washington State. It is no wonder that at this particular point, he looks like he's going to be the first Republican to win the popular vote since George W. Bush back in 2004.
And to pull that off, he gained ground with groups that Republicans do not generally count as part of their winning coalition, or really at all. How much ground did he gain?
Yeah, holy Toledo. It's just like, oh my goodness gracious. These are the types of groups that you would never have thought that Donald Trump would have gained so much support among 8 years ago when he first won against Hillary Clinton. Trump's was the best GOP showing among 18 to 29-year-olds in 20 years. You have to go all the way back to 2004. How about among black voters? It was the best performance for a Republican candidate for president in 48 years since Gerald Ford back in 1976. And among Hispanic voters, the exit polls only go back since 1972. But Donald Trump's performance on Tuesday was the best for a Republican presidential candidate in exit poll history. He literally goes all the way back through history and breaks history. This is what we're talking about, Kate Baldwin. Groups that you never thought that Donald Trump would do well among, even for a Republican candidate, that is what he did. If the 2016 election was about Donald Trump breaking through with white working class voters, this election was about breaking through and going to that Democratic coalition and tearing it apart.
And it wasn't just what he did for his own support. It trickled down to helping the Senate and helping in the House?
Yeah. So, a lot of talk this morning and this week is, the GOP is going to have a Senate majority. We don't know if the Republicans are going to have a House majority, but we think that that's the most likely to be the case. But I want you to look at the 2024 House GOP national vote showing. So this is the House popular vote. Currently, the GOP is ahead by 5 points. I expect that to shrink a little bit as some of the California results come in. But if let's just say he wins, the House GOP wins by more than 2.6 points, it will be the best House GOP showing in a presidential year in the House popular vote since 1928. If there's any viewer out there who is that old, God bless you. But the bottom line is it was probably the best House GOP national vote showing during most of our viewers' lifetimes in a presidential year.
That's impressive, right? This is a lot of records, a lot of very, very long time since we've seen anything like this. And I'm glad to see that CNN is calling it out, not because I'm a big fan of Trump's, which I am, but that's not why. This isn't about being a fan or a partisan. It's about, I think, telling the truth, right? Now, if it were the other way around, he could go ahead and say all those things and say, Biden swept it. And what did I do? When they said Biden got 81 million votes, I just said this, 81 million votes, right? We made fun of it. But I didn't, and I didn't believe it to be true, but you have to give them a chance to get it right. And here they're getting it right, and I think that's a good thing. So I think that's fair. But Great piece in the New York Post that kind of talks about this. Because, again, it was for the Republicans, there was, but so many of them. In Florida, they doubled their registration or something like that. In Pennsylvania, they also did. But that wasn't the case everywhere, despite it happening, in many big places. There was also a lot of Democrats that crossed over. You had Democrats from many different walks of life that handed this over to Donald Trump. Hispanic Democrats, Black Democrats, white female Democrats, all sorts of Democrats. And this piece in the Post by Rich Lowry, opinion piece, listen to this. Great headline. Trump got diversity right, and he built a Republican coalition for the future. I think that's 100% spot on. And I'll give you a couple lines from it. It's really good. It says, turns out everyone underestimated how a proposal for mass deportations could bring Americans together. Donald Trump assembled the biggest, most diverse Republican coalition in decades, while running further to the right on immigration, crime, and culture than perhaps any major party presidential candidate in U.S. history. And that includes Reagan, right? Because Reagan was amnesty. Trump is deport, deport, deport. Trump railed against unchecked illegal immigration in harsh and lurid terms and picked up Hispanic voters. And it makes sense because Hispanic voters also don't like illegal immigration. Trump pledged to reverse a brutal plague of bloodshed, crime, chaos, misery, and death in our land, and he won even more young voters. Trump famously dethroned the Republican establishment back in 2016, and that's how this whole thing started off, right? So, of course, the left is coming at him for his gains with Latinos. They're coming at him for his gains with young people. You know, Gen X, Joy Reid in particular. Joy Reid and Anna Navarro. Joy Reid from MSNBC and Anna Navarro from The View. Going in. But this is what they do. So I want you to hear now Joy Reid on MSNBC just last night bashing Generation X voters like me that decided to vote for Trump. Check this out.
A majority of Gen X voted to turn America into an autocracy and to condemn our kids and grandkids to a far-right Supreme Court, probably for the rest of their lives. And it was not just Gen X, because while 91% of black women voted for Kamala Harris, 53% of white women overall voted for Trump, despite the open disrespect and demonization hurled by J.D. Vance and the Supreme Court stripping women's bodily autonomy, courtesy of Donald Trump.
So that's Joy Reid. But Anna Navarro's not that far behind. Nope. She wants to get in on the conversation, too, because you know what? She says you're going to have your abuela. She's going to be deported. Listen to this.
I certainly am having a really hard time getting my arms around it because it's hard to understand how they voted for somebody who today they know who he is, right? In 2016, perhaps they didn't, and perhaps they thought he was going to change. Mm-hmm. Black people voted for somebody they know is a racist. Latinos voted for somebody they know is going to deport their abuela. Yeah. Puerto Ricans voted for somebody they know treats them like trash and has people around them who actually calls them trash. White women voted for somebody.
That is complete. I can't even say it on the radio, but it rhymes with Bolshevik, right? This lady is so full of it. First of all, Trump being a racist is, in my opinion, one of the biggest lies that's been perpetuated by the media. And there are people that utterly believe this as gospel truth, as if they have been mistreated somehow by Donald Trump. Did you know that when he was a landlord that he treated the black people badly? Did you know that he took out an ad against the Central Park Five? Did you know? I mean, you go on and on and on about these stories. And when you dig into them, all you find are the facts. And the facts always lead to the truth. And the truth is always Trump's not a racist. Trump never said there's good people on both sides. Trump was given the NAACP award by Rosa Parks. I mean, how much more do you need? Trump was like the biggest funder of Jesse Jackson's campaign back in 1988 for president. Democrat who ran for president. And we've played the audio on this program of Jesse Jackson praising Trump for being one of his biggest donors. Where's the racism? Where's the racism when all the rappers were calling Trump to be in their video? And he was in it. Trump was no stranger to the hip-hop community. He loved it. Where's the racism? So that's one of the biggest lies. The other lie, she says, Puerto Ricans voted for somebody they know treats them like trash. How does that happen? I think if we look at the record and we look at how many dollars the United States government sent during the Trump administration to the government of Puerto Rico in the form of aid and infrastructure, it's the biggest number we've ever seen. When we talk about a president going to Puerto Rico to actually hand out supplies with his incredible jump shot, this is the big deal, right? And again, people who were in the room have described this a million times. People saying, oh, look, us in the back. Don't forget us in the back. And what did Trump do? He grabbed the paper towels and threw them to the people in the back so that they wouldn't be left out. And somehow this has been turned into an offense. Somehow this has been described as some sort of disrespect because he threw a package of paper towels. I got to tell you, if there was a hurricane and Joe Biden came and threw a paper towel at me, I'd jump up and catch it. There was a hurricane in New Jersey. It's called Hurricane Sandy. Barack Obama came to New Jersey, and he famously hugged the governor of New Jersey, a governor I served in his administration, Chris Christie. And the world freaked out. His career was over. Oh, well, never vote. How could he do such a thing? Guess what? He was doing what he had to do for the people of New Jersey. He appreciated seeing the president of the United States here in New Jersey. There might be lots of reasons. These are politicians. So to say that their motives are political goes without saying. But he was here. He didn't just send the deputy. He didn't send this person. He came here. That means a lot to a lot of people. To say, you know what? My differences aside, this guy is the president, and he's here. Donald Trump was in Puerto Rico. So to say that he's treated them poorly, I mean, it's just such a lie. It's such a lie. But people like to hear these things. So when they say blacks voted for somebody they know is a racist, Puerto Ricans voted for somebody who treats them like trash, white women voted for somebody they know took away their reproductive rights. I think there are so many white women in America, 53% of them, Anna, that believe that they have the right to reproduce irrespective of Donald Trump. And they know it. I think there are Puerto Ricans that realize this lady, Ana Navarro, I believed her the first 10 times she told me Trump was a racist. But after looking and doing my own research, I realized Ana Navarro is a racist. Ana Navarro is a liar. I think that's what it boils down to. Trying to gaslight the American people into believing whatever you want them to believe. It's not always going to work, Anna. It's not going to work, even if you cite their abuela. More to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A lot of people say I do a tremendous job. And Rich Valdez does a tremendous job, I can tell you that. He's a fantastic person.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. To the phones we go. It's open phones across America with me, Rich Valdez, America at Night, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Let's go to Portland, Maine on WLOB and check in with Allison. Go for it.
Hola. Yeah,
hola.
I was where the code call screeners was really breaking up, but you're not cool. Anyway, Kalu Kaleo Frab just stayed to borrow some lines from Lewis Carroll. Anyway, I was, oh man, I'm so relieved. I've been, it's up and down. Everybody has been for weeks and months. When Biden dropped out, I thought, and then she picked Walls, and I thought, well, that's not going to help her much. And of course, when he got shot, oh man, I mean, it was just so devastating, you know. And then it's been up and down. And then, but I think Kamala's the last couple of weeks, she was just, all she could do was say fascist, 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 and she was just doing like these concerts with rock people and things, you know. And it just seemed like it was like she was auditioning for a part in a movie instead of for president or something, you know, right? And then on Tuesday night, he was getting so far ahead, and then when it started freezing with the usual battleground states, I thought, oh, they aren't going to do this. You know, they're not going to suddenly pull, you know, she's suddenly going to run the table and suddenly she's going to have a royal flush or something. But I think Trump had the aces all along. So you know, I was just so, you know, it was, let me see. When he got North Carolina, I thought, well, sure, duh, especially after the hurricane. And then Georgia, I thought, oh, wait a minute. And then finally, hours later, when he got Pennsylvania, I thought, aha, that was it, right? And then it took a bit longer for Wisconsin and everything. But, I mean, whoa, it's just amazing. And then as you were just playing the thing that was playing earlier, it's just crazy how it's just such a huge win. It's just, I mean, I would never have expected that. Did you expect that even? Did you?
I did expect 300 electoral college votes. I think I said it a couple of times on this program, and I might have shared it on Newsmax as well. And I thought he would win 6 of the 7 swing states. It turns out he won them all. And he outperformed what I thought he was going to do with 312 electoral college votes and all the states he won. Really, really blew it away. I didn't think it was going to be 312. I didn't think it was going to be that high. But the day I said, I think he's going to get more than 300, I forget who the guest was. And they said, I think he's going to get between 310 and 315. And I said, wow. So obviously there were others that thought he was going to do even better as he did. So, yeah, look at that. I'm grateful. I'm happy, just like you are. Very excited for what the future holds. He says we're going to usher in the golden era of America, and I think that's true, Allison. I really do. I think we're going to go back to the American system that Jim Rickards mentioned last night, that they used, you know, from the early 1800s to the 1960s, and you know, based on tariffs and things like that, and keeping manufacturing in America, rebuilding manufacturing. And I think if there's a focus on a lot of that stuff, we're going to do well, and we're going to do well quickly. Allison, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Buenas noches to you. Shout out to WLOB. And I'm going to get to the rest of your calls and more momentarily. We've got calls from, let's see, Saratoga, New York, WGDJ, Burlington, Vermont, WVMT, Boise, Idaho, KBFI, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI, Phoenix, Arizona, KFNX, let's see, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Lots going on. Let's go to John, Phoenix, Arizona. Go for it.
Hey, good morning, Rich. Hey, I got a little bit of info for you. Last week, or maybe earlier this week, you had someone who appeared to be a troll and said he was listening out of L.A. to you on K-Rock. His caller was KROC. He was referring to KROQ out of Los Angeles. I remember that one.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting a lot of trolls. Typically happens around Election Day. But what are you going to do? They're all lamenting and drowning in their tears right about now. Thanks, John. Shout out to you guys in Phoenix. KFNX in the building. Coming right back.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The so-called Immediate Response Cards pilot program was designed to help feed migrant families who'd found themselves in New York with no way to afford food. The one-year contract provided what the city described as culturally relevant food to 2,600 migrant families, allowing them to basically buy what they wanted. A family of 4 with 2 kids under 5 got about $350 per week to cover food in a program the city said would actually save taxpayers millions a year. It also reduced food waste. You may remember the food the city had been providing in migrant shelters was seen as not culturally sensitive to the needs of some migrant groups, and it ended up just going to waste. For more than a year, the city was groaning under the weight of more than 200,000 asylum seekers. Officials say the migrant population has actually reduced lately. In fact, a massive shelter on Roosevelt Island is in the process of closing. In the meantime, Mayor Adams spoke on the phone yesterday with President-elect Donald Trump, who had vowed during his campaign to mass deport migrants. Aside from congratulating him on his win, though, Adams today would not say what they discussed.
So Mayor Adams is saying, look, I'm not renewing the contract for this company that, helps us feed these people, giving out these prepaid debit cards with from the I think it was $3.2 million that they were giving out in aid on these debit cards. And this, comes on the heels of him having a conversation with Trump winning, etc. Great. I think it's fantastic. Now people think, Rich, why are you so ruthless? Why don't you love your Hispanic people? Why won't you give them food? That's so unchristian of you. I'm not saying any of that. He's saying he's not renewing that particular vendor. Doesn't mean that they put the kibosh on everything. They're going to find a new way to do it because you can't really sustain these things. And that's the bottom line. If 100 people knocked on my door tomorrow and said, look, we heard that you're, a follower of Jesus, albeit a flawed one that messes up all the time. And we heard that, if we ask you for food, that you'll give it to us. I mean, I'll give them whatever I can. But if there's 100 people and I can only afford to feed half of one of them, guess what? Only half of one of them is going to eat. And that's the reality. So, good on Mayor Adams for finally being freed from, I guess, being under the thumb of Joe Biden. Because, it seems like he says things but acts differently. And I understand the city council also has his hands tied a little bit. In my conversations with Councilwoman Vicky Palladino, who's a big supporter of Donald Trump's and an unapologetic patriot, she has a lot of good things to say about Mayor Eric Adams. That he's not as bad as I make him out to be. So I'm trying to be a little bit more fair, right? Fairer with him, if you will. But when I see the government doing things that I think they shouldn't be doing, I got to call it out. For example, here's another one. FEMA says they're horrified, quote, after confirming that workers that were directed by them to avoid the homes that had Trump signs in front in the areas that were ravaged by the hurricane in Florida. A FEMA supervisor told disaster relief workers in Florida to avoid homes with signs supporting President-elect Donald Trump. They confirmed that today. This FEMA official, Marnie Washington, conveyed in her edict, both verbally and in a video stream through Microsoft Teams, that people that were canvassing Lake Placid homes that were ravaged by Hurricane Milton last month needed to avoid houses that had Trump signs. Avoid homes advertising Trump, direct quote. Washington wrote in a best practices memo to employees. The order was the second bullet point in a list instructing workers to not go anywhere alone. Practice de-escalation, stay hydrated, and follow the rules. Now, you see how this works? You might hear this and think to yourself, wow, that's messed up. They don't want to help the Trumpers. This is more sinister than that. This is them training people that rely on them for a paycheck, right? Their employees, training them, indoctrinating them, brainwashing them into thinking that if you go to a Trump household, it may be dangerous for you because Trump's a threat to democracy, so therefore these people might be as well. This is why it was included in the don't go anywhere alone procedures and the de-escalation procedures. This is all about taking care of yourself, staying hydrated, and stay away from the Trump homes, right? So it's not about doing harm to the Trump supporter. It's more about the Trump supporter might do harm to you. So watch yourself. Do you see how they work? Very sinister. Absolutely disgusting. No, nobody should put up with that. Anyway, let me see. Let's go to your calls. Where did I leave off? I left off with this one. Mel calling us from Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. Go for it.
Good evening, Rich. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things real quickly. the gentleman you had on talking about the food that we've been eating and kind of connecting that with birth defects. My grandson is severely autistic. My daughter did the best she could to eat well during her pregnancy, yet, we have to take a look at, well, how did that happen when there's nothing like that in our family history? Also with Robert Kennedy, I heard that might be not pushed in, but nominated to, let's say, for the FDA, which is something that really needs to, I think, that really be looked at. He's pro-health food and pro-health for the country. The things that the United States allows in their food, where other countries overseas don't allow. There was a story out that McDonald's sprays their salads with a chemical in order to keep them crisp and greener longer, and that they have chemicals in their fries, friolators, in order to not have to reproduce or change out the oils. It's just absolutely disgusting on what we allow. A friend of mine down in Virginia has a small farm that butts up against a Montrose conglomerate farm. When Montrose sprays their field, his crops die.
Yeah, I believe that.
It's just it's suspicious. Another going back probably a week or so ago, you had a young lady on that wrote a book on the lack of men's rights and masculinity. To butt something up along with that, there is a movie that's been out for a while, a documentary called The Red Pill, a documentary on the lack of men's rights and the absolute brutalization of our rights and as far as getting children during divorces and so on. Something that I think is an outstanding video to watch.
I'll definitely take a look at it, Mel, because I think that, that is obviously a problem that, I myself was divorced very early on in life and did my best to raise my kids and had 40 some odd % custody. And so they were with me, a lot, probably 14 days a month. And it's not easy. And I met a lot of guys on that journey and going to court and doing stuff like that. And you see some guys that are not doing that great and some guys that are really trying hard. And you're right. It's a system that isn't very favorable to men. It's almost like you got the target on you from day one with that system. So I totally understand what you're saying. And I'll definitely check it out. Mel, thank you for the call, brother. Godspeed to you. Shout out to WGDJ. And let us continue. Excuse me. Let's go to Vincent, Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Rich. Great show as usual. I want to, bring up this subject of, children in school being administered drugs, specifically amphetamines. I think they call it Ritalin.
Oh, Ritalin or Adderall? Sure.
I hope that, no one seems to be concerned. These children grow up with, in many cases, with severe problems. They become suicidal. They become, they have other behavior problems, and it's just a terrible thing. And I hope that Kennedy or somebody or you can help. This has got to stop. I mean, that's not the way to discipline children.
Well, I know a little bit about that, Vincent. I can tell you this: I have ADHD and didn't know until I was in my 30s when I got diagnosed, and that was the first course of remedy that they gave me was to take the speed, if you will. And it didn't really fix the problem for me. I took it and I felt horrible. I didn't like it. But I know many people that do take it and function extraordinarily well on it. Because the reason it works is, you don't get high if you actually need it. You only get high if you don't need it, which is an interesting thing. So people that have ADHD really don't experience what everybody else is. They experience normalcy because they spend so much of their time, going so fast to begin with, kind of slows down your mind so that you're not, running with like 4 or 5 different windows open, if you will. But of course, with any treatment. I think there are side effects. I opted to not really take it. I think I tried 3 different ones, and I was like, I don't like any of this stuff. So I didn't use it, and I chose not to. But with that comes, your GPS telling you to make a right, make a right, make a right, and you go straight, or make a right, make a right, make a right, and you make a left, and you just literally the impulse control is very difficult to manage, and it's not a mind over matter thing. The medicine definitely does help if it works. For me, it never worked, so I just didn't do it, and I just make the left turn and the wrong turn, and I show up late. It's amazing I've succeeded in radio, but you figure out ways to succeed, and the bottom line is. Yeah, I don't know. I know Ritalin's been around for a very, very long time, and I don't know if people are having that type of adverse reaction to it. But there are other pills out there that fall into a category known as SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And these are mood enhancers that do change the way your brain works to manage your mood. And oftentimes when people stop taking them, they can experience a lot of different things. And I think those are the ones, these antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds that are known as SSRIs. I know that those can make people feel and act a little different when they're either taking them for too long or getting off of them. And there's a lot of research on that. Some of it's inconclusive, but a lot of people looking to try and prove more about the negative effects of that. Excuse me. And you typically hear about that when they advertise these things in the fine print, in that fast voice that says may cause blah, 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 including death, right? And it's like, whoa, hold on. That's not cool. So I think, we definitely got to read those labels. And we need somebody like Bobby Kennedy that's going to be in there saying, hold on, we need to know what's going on here. So, Vincent, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Really good point. And we get to the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Speed round coming up.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, you're a true patriot and a Latino voice. We need more of you in America. And keep up your good work, Rich.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Voters told the Democratic Party over and over and over again that their main issues were their pocketbooks, inflation, and immigration. And that was what they told them. And the closing message of the Democratic Party was democracy and Donald Trump is a bad man.
That is Lulu Garcia Navarro. She's a CNN contributor. She's from the New York Times, though. She's a podcast host at the New York Times. And she had a really tough interview with J.D. Vance, and he shut her down pretty good. But she says, what she says is accurate. Voters told the Democrat Party over and over that their issue was the economy, inflation, and immigration. And the closing message of Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party was democracy, and Donald Trump is a bad man. She got it right. That stuff wasn't working. It wasn't selling. They've been selling it for years, and it just didn't materialize. And you know who else is out there trying to make sense out of this? Remember her? Jen Circleback Psaki, silent P, of course. Jen Circleback Psaki was on MSNBC, and she's blaming Kamala Harris's election loss on the Never-Trumpers, saying it's the Never-Trumpers that the focus was on, and they're losers. She kind of sounds like Trump, doesn't she? Listen to this.
There were many headwinds here. There is sexism. There's racism. All of that is true. But I also think there is a real question I hope people start looking at about who people are listening to. In my view, there was an over-listening to and an over-lifting up of people who left Trump, not people who left the Democratic Party. The people who left the Democratic Party are the people who are going to, win in the future. The people who left Trump, the Never-Trumpers, who have important voices that is not the winning coalition.
By not the winning coalition, she means they're losers. Losers, losers, right? That's what she means. And she's right. She should have paid attention to the women that were leaving the Democrat Party, the black men that were leaving the Democrat Party, the Hispanic men that were leaving the Democrat Party, that handed this victory over to the Republicans and Donald Trump. This nation is grateful. On behalf of the nation, I'm grateful to those coalitions and demographics for doing the right thing. Absolutely. But that's the truth. The Democrats turned their hearing aids off and didn't pay attention, including Jennifer Circleback Psaki, because guess what? She's on MSNBC, and she's reaching people. I don't know how many people, but she's reaching them. And before that, she was press secretary, and she was reaching people. So she can reach people. She's probably got 1 million followers on social media. What were you doing, Jennifer Circleback Psaki, is what I want to know. Were you part of the winning coalition, or were you part of the losers? Let's go to your call. Speed round. Here we go. Let's go to Kim, Georgia, Vermont. I didn't know there was a Georgia, Vermont. WVMT, go ahead.
Hello, Rich.
Hi.
I just wanted to say, well, how come nobody's talking about the Amish votes? I mean, these people, everybody's talking about the Hispanic votes, the black votes, the women votes.
Well, I think because you have Hispanics and blacks all across the country, and you have Amish pretty much just in, Lancaster County there in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure they helped to win Pennsylvania, which was very decisive. And I saw some amazing videos of them in their horse and carriage, or horse and buggy as they call it, and out there with Trump flags on their carriages. But I think that's probably why they're being undersold. But you're right. We should definitely have some praise for the Amish. They did an amazing job. Kim, thank you for your call. Folks, pause right here. Come right back. Speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we're back. Rich Valdez, and we're almost done, but it's the speed round. Let me check in with Tony, calling us from Montreal, listening on WVMT. Tony, go for it very quickly.
Hey, listen, Rick, keep it up. I mean, very, very happy that we avoided the abyss, and common sense Americans were not fooled by the tactics, the Kamala tactics, the Democratic Party that left its original roots. They left the Democratic Party that I knew under JFK. I'm super happy that RFK Jr., boosted Trump, and I believe that he will try to correct the misgivings of our food supply in the United States.
Yeah, I think you're right. on all accounts there, and I'm grateful for it as well. Tony, thank you for the call. Have a great weekend, my brother. Shout out to everybody in Montreal listening on WVMT. Shout out over there. Let's go to Monica very quickly. Pendleton, Oregon on KUMA. Monica, go for it.
Hi. Hey, apparently, I guess I have Trump euphoria syndrome because, shoot.
That's a lot better than the Trump derangement syndrome, right? I like that. Trump euphoria syndrome. Monica, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the call. Big shout out to everybody in Pendleton, Oregon on KUMA. And let's keep it going right across America. Let's go to, he's not there now, is he? All right. I guess we go to Sarah, Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go for it.
Hey, great show. I think we received a God-given stay of execution. The left was ready to snuff us out, and God interceded. I do say down the road, we do really need to think about a national divorce because the majority of Democrats are not like RFK, who respect other people's rights and actually share some common values. And that's what scares me, is what the future holds once they go further and further left.
Further left it is. You're right. Thank you, Sarah. All right, amigos, that's it for me this week. I'm coming back with you on Monday, God willing. Hasta la próxima. Take care. God bless you, America, and good night. I'm Rich Valdez.